You are the most important relationship. Before you swipe, text, or worry about being too much, start with you. Grow Therapy helps you build self-worth, set boundaries, and show up as your full self. Whether it's your first time in therapy or your 50th, Grow makes it easier to find a therapist who fits you, not the other way around. They connect you with thousands of independent licensed therapists across the U.S., offering both virtual and in-person sessions, nights and weekends. You can search by what matters, like insurance, specialty, identity, or availability, and get started in as little as 2 days. And if something comes up, you can cancel up to 24 hours in advance at no cost. There are no subscriptions, no long-term commitments. You just pay per session. Grow helps you find therapy on your time. Whatever challenges you're facing, Grow Therapy is here to help. Grow accepts over 100 insurance plans, including Medicaid in some states. Sessions average about $21 with insurance, and some pay as little as $0 depending on their plan. Visit growtherapy.com/booknow to get started. That's growtherapy.com/booknow. growtherapy.com/booknow. Availability and coverage vary by state and insurance plan.
911, what's the nature of your emergency?
Welcome back to the Tactical Living Podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Wilton, joined by Sergeant Wilton. And how are you?
I'm excellent.
I remember having a conversation with a police officer who was just going through a really difficult time, and he said something to me that it stood out like crazy. And he was talking about his daughter and his wife and how basically they seem to walk on eggshells whenever they're around him. And so that conversation led us into a deeper conversation talking about basically how a lot of the times hypervigilance can turn into control at home. And in the realm of first responders, this isn't ever something that I hear people talk about, but it's an important concept because if it's something that you're experiencing, you might not even know it if you're not paying attention to the details.
And I think with that, it's that once again, it's like that we receive this information all the time, and it's having this conversation with your loved ones and helping. Because when you're in that situation, you're not always going to recognize it or identify it because it's kind of in your mind, it's your normal. And having them bring that to your attention is something that really helps because now you can start addressing that as a problem and seeing how you can adapt or what needs to be changed to so you don't have to have your family walking on eggshells around you.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, hypervigilance is an essential survival skill when you're on the job, but it often follows a lot of first responders home, and this quietly shows up as control in their closest relationships. I think that at work, hypervigilance is going to keep you sharp, it's going to keep you safe, but at home, that same constant scanning can turn into micromanaging. I see that a lot. It can turn into things like emotional containment or difficulty relaxing. And I think too, even when nothing is said out loud, a lot of the times your family can feel that tension and that pressure, and especially that emotional distance that it creates.
I think too, outside of the first responder realm, I see this with others that have the kind of that hypervigilance mentality because of whatever experiences they've had in their lives to create that, and it turns into a control mechanism because you don't know different avenues on how you can protect your family and to keep everybody safe, and it comes down to an inexperience when it comes to being able to address those safety concerns, those issues, that being hypervigilant. Because like for me, I can go out in public and be hypervigilant and not everyone even knows that I'm being vigilant of what's going on around us all the time. It just depends on that dynamic in that situation, which you're approaching, and having that light switch that you can turn on and off is something that's super important because you need that decompression time. You need to be able to say, hey, can you carry this torch for me because I need to mentally decompress.
Yeah, the psychological concept here is called hypervigilance and overcontrol, and the two of those basically butt heads because hypervigilance is going to keep the nervous system in a heightened state of alert, but when this becomes chronic, then control emerges, and this is a way to basically reduce uncertainty, and the intent is protection, but the impact at home is a lot of the times just disconnection.
It's funny. So I'm thinking of our little bow dog. he has his hypervigilance on all the time, and it's over. Ashley just kind of not rolled her eyes at me, but kind of gave a smile, because it's funny because he's when he's just with his mama and there's nothing else going on around him, he's perfectly fine. And he's entrusting Ashley to have that vigilance to be able to make sure he's taken care of. As soon as I come home, and if I have to get up off the couch to go anywhere, he like tries attacking me. What are you doing? You're a stranger danger. Like it's really funny. And he has it on all the time, to where his happy places was just him and his mama. But when I'm home, it's he has to have that on at all points until he gets into his relaxed state. He goes, okay, I'm comfortable again.
I wonder where he learned that from.
I know.
So a lot of the times, I feel like this might look like things like needing things done a certain way, or having difficulty delegating or relaxing. Sometimes I see irritation when plans change, or emotional shutdown during family time. And this, again, is information. These are all cues that we might need to check in with. And
when we start trying to over control these situations, just like we do, say we're out, and it's a problem within law enforcement in general, is I think we try controlling everything so often all the time, it becomes as a response that we do to everything in our lives, at work and at home. And there's so many instances that I can think of. I say this all the time to my guys, we have too many chiefs and not enough Indians, because sometimes you need to relinquish control to someone that has this understanding. And it's like you're going to a dynamic SWAT entry type incident, to where, say, I'm not on SWAT, but another sergeant's on SWAT, where they have that expertise in it. I relinquish that control to them because they have that expertise and experience.
There are a lot of signs when hypervigilance is showing up as control. And the first could be that you struggle with flexibility at home, or maybe you feel unsafe when plans change. Perhaps you might monitor everything without even realizing it, and that scanning never stops, or you feel responsible for everybody's safety and emotions. I see that as a big one for a lot of people, even when that responsibility is not yours to carry. I know an officer who constantly has his brother's kids call him every time that you would think they would call their dad instead. And this individual takes on that responsibility as though those kids were his own. And, not to say that you can't be there for people. There comes a point, though, when there has to be some boundaries that are set.
Yeah, and I think that's the hardest thing for all of us, is to set those boundaries, to be able to relinquish that control. Because once you start doing that, it's like it almost feels like you could be giving away a piece of you, and you may feel like you're not being there as supportive for your loved ones, whatever it may be. But it's important to create a balance associated to it.
And maybe your family feels that tension even when it's silent. And the reason for that is because your body communicates it before your words do. And for some people, I think they feel like they can only relax when they're alone, because that control feels easier without any variables in the mix.
Yeah, if being able to figure out those different tactics that will help you alleviate that, so one, your family can feel not only safe but comfortable around you, to where they're not having to walk on those eggshells, it's finding those tools that work for you.
And there are a lot of ways that we can reduce that control without feeling like we are losing any of the safety. And I think the first one is to recognize that control is actually protection. It's not personality. And this is something that you literally learned and trained on.
Yeah, and that's where I think that struggle comes in, because it's so ingrained in you that it's hard to be able to turn it on and turn it off. And just with anything that we deal with, especially in the law enforcement realm, you never know where the threat's coming from. You're always ready for the next threat, and it's great at work, but at the same time at home, you should be able to mitigate that some.
So not everything needs managing. And when we're able to differentiate the threat from discomfort, it literally can change the game. So right now I feel hyped up, let's say. Why do I feel hyped up right now? Is there a threat, or am I uncomfortable? okay, the truth is I'm uncomfortable. Well, what's making me uncomfortable right now? And having those really deep self-conversations with ourselves is going to allow us to kind of dig through some of the mess and then understand what's at the very bottom of it.
Yeah, because once you do that, you're able to start recognizing and identifying the problem. And if you can't do that yourself, it's where you lean on your spouse, you lean on your loved ones to help you recognize that, but being open to what they tell you once you ask them for it.
I'm glad you said that because that leads in directly with what I was about to say. And trust builds regulation. So a lot of the times you might need to practice letting others lead in your safe spaces. And you and I do a great job at kind of handing that torch off to one another, to where one doesn't have like wearing the pants in the relationship. Like one doesn't have that priority over the other one. And we just naturally get into this rhythm of shifting that with one another.
Yeah, when you have that balance with one another, it's a shared responsibility, and one you can trust each other's going to be able to handle any issues that arise, to be able to support one another with it.
Your nervous system might literally need a stand down signal, and you need to get very clear with what your on duty and off duty transitions are. You do an amazing job with that. And I think that's one thing that really helps to make sure that you're able to turn that hypervigilance off when you need to. And a lot of people, I think if you were able to just understand that about yourself, then it's easier to actually put it into action.
Having that information is something, and that's what we've talked about, is having everything in life is information. Being able to receive that information, diagnose it, and evolve it into what works for you is so important, instead of just brushing off that information and not using it.
Yeah, and I think that as a first responder, it's important to recognize how your survival skills actually spill into your home life, and to know that there are ways for you to be able to bring that safety into your home without turning it into control. I hope you've gotten some value out of today's episode. If you have, do us a favor, drop a review, subscribe down below, and as always, know that I'm sending you a long, tight hug from my home to yours.